Jackie Gleason revealed the Golden Age guests who were actually evil. Jackie Gleason wasn't born into fame, he was born into chaos. Brooklyn, 1916. Small apartment, broken family, empty fridge. His father walked out without a goodbye. His mother worked herself to the bone until her heart gave out before Jackie even finished high school. He was a kid left alone in the world. No money, no family, no backup plan. But where most people would have fallen apart, Jackie built armor out of laughter. He realized something early. If you can make people laugh, you can survive anything. By his teens, he was performing on the streets, cracking jokes for coins, turning pain into punchlines. People didn't just laugh, they felt him. There was something raw in his humor, something that came from real scars. In the smoky theaters of New York, young Jackie started hosting as a master of ceremonies, the guy who could talk, charm, and keep an entire room alive. But make no mistake, behind that booming laugh, he was watching everything. He studied people, the phonies, the climbers, the broken souls hiding behind smiles. That sharp eye would one day make him rich, and make him dangerous to the fake world of Hollywood he would soon enter. As the years rolled into the late 1930s, America was changing fast, and so was entertainment. Theaters were fading, and a brand new invention was stealing the spotlight: television. Jackie saw it coming before anyone else. He didn't just want to be famous, he wanted to own the screen. When television hit American homes, Jackie Gleason didn't dip his toes in. He took it over. He wasn't polished like the other TV hosts. He wasn't soft-spoken or perfect. He was loud, flawed, hilarious, and real. That was his secret weapon. While other entertainers tried to look like movie stars, Jackie looked like your neighbor from Brooklyn. He made mistakes on camera. He stumbled, shouted, improvised, and people loved him for it. Because for the first time, someone on TV wasn't pretending. Then came the show that changed everything: The Honeymooners. A sitcom that looked simple on the surface, a bus driver, his wife, and their friends trying to get by. But it wasn't just comedy, it was a mirror of real life in post-war America. Jackie as Ralph Cramden wasn't just funny. He was every man's frustration, every man's dream. He shouted, he schemed, he failed, and he kept trying, just like the audience watching him. And when he threw out that iconic line, "One of these days, Alice," bang! Zoom! Straight to the moon. People didn't just laugh, they saw themselves. Overnight, Gleason became the face of American television. His energy was electric, his timing perfect, and his confidence unmatched. But behind the applause, something else was happening. Gleason was meeting the biggest stars of the Golden Age, legends like Frank Sinatra, Orson Welles, Joan Crawford, and he began to notice something that made his skin crawl. They weren't like him. They weren't real. Behind the charm, the smiles, the tuxedos, he saw darkness, cruelty, power games, things the public never would have believed if he hadn't lived it himself. And years later, when Gleason finally spoke out, he didn't hold back. He didn't whisper rumors, he named names. And the truth he revealed about Hollywood's biggest icons would shock the world. When you think of Jackie Gleason, you probably picture that booming laugh, the sharp suit, the confident grin that said, "How sweet it is." But behind that showman's smile was a man who refused to be just one thing. After conquering television with The Honeymooners, Gleason wanted more. He didn't want to be just America's funny man. He wanted to prove he was a true artist, someone who could dominate every stage he touched. So he built something few entertainers could ever pull off: The Jackie Gleason Show. It wasn't just a TV show, it was a weekly event. Gleason controlled every second of it: the music, the sketches, the energy, even the audience applause. Millions tuned in just to see what he'd do next. And yet, while he was making people laugh, something deeper was going on. Every performance, every monologue, every over-the-top gesture was coming from a man who had seen too much of humanity. The good, the bad, and the cruel. He channeled it all into his art. Then came his shocking transformation: Jackie Gleason, the serious actor. In 1961, he stepped into The Hustler as Minnesota Fats, a cold, calculating pool shark who barely spoke but owned every scene he was in. Standing beside Paul Newman, Gleason didn't have to say a word. His silence said it all. Critics were stunned. The clown had become a king. He earned an Oscar nomination, and for the first time, the world saw that behind the jokes was a man capable of unsettling depth. But that wasn't the only surprise. Gleason was also a musical visionary. During the 1950s and 60s, when most comedians were chasing TV fame, Gleason was producing orchestral albums filled with lush strings and romantic melodies. His record music for lovers only didn't just sell, it exploded, topping charts for over 150 weeks. No comedian had ever done that. He wasn't just funny, he was unstoppable. Yet with every new success came something darker. More fame, more money, and more encounters with the powerful elite of Hollywood. The ones who wore charm like armor and kindness like a disguise. And Jackie, the kid from Brooklyn who had seen life's real pain, started to notice how fake the smiles around him really were. The parties, the laughter, the red carpets, it was all a performance. And the more he saw, the less he could stomach. He started telling friends quietly, "Hollywood isn't what you think it is. Some of these people, they're not just arrogant, they're evil." No one wanted to believe him. But years later, Gleason would prove he wasn't exaggerating. For all his fame, Jackie Gleason lived a life that was more tragedy than triumph. Behind the laughter, he was a man haunted by loneliness, health problems, and the ghosts of his past. He married 3 times, each relationship revealing a different side of him. Genevieve Halford, his first wife, was loyal, patient, and endlessly frustrated. She wanted stability, faith, a quiet family life. Jackie wanted show business, excitement, and endless nights at smoky bars with producers and stars. They loved each other deeply but fought constantly. For 34 years they tried to hold on, but the spotlight always burned too bright. After their long and painful breakup, Jackie rushed into a new marriage with Beverly McKittrick, a much younger woman who barely knew the man behind the fame. It was short, chaotic, and filled with tension. Jackie was drinking heavily, his body giving up, his mind restless. He was chasing peace in all the wrong places. Then came Marilyn Taylor, the woman who finally understood him. Marilyn wasn't intimidated by Jackie's fame. She came from show business herself, the sister of June Taylor, whose dancers lit up Gleason's TV stage every week. She had seen the chaos before and chose to love the man anyway. To everyone else, Jackie was the great one. To Marilyn, he was just a tired soul who wanted peace. She stood by him through the fights, the sickness, the fading fame, right until his final days. But here's what makes this part of the story so powerful. It's in these private years that Jackie Gleason began to speak his truth. He no longer cared about Hollywood's approval. He didn't need to protect anyone's reputation. So when reporters asked him about the golden age, about the glamorous guests who appeared on his show, Gleason didn't smile and nod like everyone else. He leaned in and said, "You want to know the truth? Some of them were actually evil." And when they laughed, thinking he was joking, he looked them dead in the eye and said, "I've seen what goes on when the lights go off. You wouldn't believe who these people really are." That was the moment Jackie Gleason stopped being just an entertainer and became a whistleblower of old Hollywood. Because what he exposed next would change how the world remembered its golden stars forever. By the time Jackie Gleason reached his later years, he had nothing left to prove. He'd conquered television, music, film, everything. He was the great one, the man who had entertained an entire generation. But now, he was done entertaining. In one rare, off-the-cuff interview, Gleason stunned everyone. The laughter stopped. The audience leaned in. He said, "You think you know those golden age stars you worship? You don't. Some of them were actually evil. No one knew what to say." Evil? This was coming from Jackie Gleason, the man who made the world laugh. And he wasn't joking. He wasn't talking about artistic egos or backstage drama. He was talking about a darkness he claimed lived inside some of the biggest names in show business, people America adored. For decades, Hollywood had built itself on illusions, bright lights, perfect smiles, and polished interviews. But Gleason had seen the shadows behind those lights. He'd been to the private dinners, the closed-door parties, the places where the mask slipped. And once you saw behind the curtain, you could never unsee it. He warned that the stars people worshipped weren't gods. They were performers playing parts even off the stage. And when the camera stopped rolling, what came out wasn't glamour. It was cruelty. At first, people thought he was exaggerating, until he started naming names. When Orson Welles is mentioned, most people think of Citizen Kane, the booming voice, the towering genius. But Gleason saw something else, something much darker. He once said, "Orson was brilliant, but don't let that fool you." Behind the camera, Welles wasn't the misunderstood artist Hollywood painted him to be. According to Gleason, he was manipulative, selfish, and cruel to anyone beneath him. Gleason described it bluntly. "Some people light up a room when they walk in. Orson lit it up when he walked out. He meant it." Gleason had seen Welles humiliate assistants, destroy people's confidence, and laugh about it later. He said Welles had a need to dominate, not just the stage, but everyone around him. To Gleason, it wasn't just arrogance, it was joy in cruelty. And that scared him. Welles's genius was undeniable, but Gleason believed that same intelligence became a weapon, a way to twist people, make them feel small, make them obey. In a world obsessed with talent, Welles used his as a leash. Gleason told close friends that Hollywood celebrated men like Welles because the system itself was built on ego and control. The more ruthless you were, the higher you climbed. And Orson Welles, in Gleason's eyes, was proof that brilliance could hide something monstrous. But Welles wasn't the only one. Gleason said there was another man, even more charming, even more dangerous. Someone loved by millions, feared by just as many. That man was Frank Sinatra. When Frank Sinatra walked into a room, everything stopped. The voice, the swagger, the perfect suit. He was Hollywood royalty. But Jackie Gleason didn't buy the act. They'd worked together on shows, shared stages, laughed in front of cameras. To the world, they looked like old pals. The funny man and the crooner, two legends side by side. But off camera, Gleason said, the real Sinatra was nothing like the one fans adored. He recalled moments that shocked him. Sinatra snapping at waiters, berating musicians, turning his charm on and off like a switch. Frank had a mean streak a mile wide, Gleason once said. He could be charming 1 minute and the next, he'd cut you down so fast you'd forget you were human. According to Gleason, Sinatra didn't just enjoy control, he needed it. He wanted to be feared. And he knew exactly how to make people afraid of him. It wasn't just gossip. Sinatra's temper was legendary even among insiders. Whispers about his connections to powerful people, his unpredictable rages, the way others tiptoed around him. Gleason saw all of it up close. And he didn't like what he saw. In interviews, Gleason didn't accuse Sinatra of crimes, he accused him of cruelty. He said Sinatra used his fame like a weapon, not to inspire, but to intimidate. People loved him, Gleason said, but I don't think he ever loved them back. To the public, Sinatra was smooth and untouchable. To Gleason, he was proof that success could rot a man from the inside out. And if those revelations weren't enough, Gleason dropped another bombshell, this time about one of the most glamorous women in Hollywood history, Joan Crawford. When Joan Crawford appeared on screen, she didn't just perform, she commanded. Her eyes could slice through glass. Her posture screamed control. Her beauty felt like power wrapped in silk. To America, she was the definition of class. To Jackie Gleason, she was something else entirely. He once said, Joan was beautiful, but there was nothing soft about her. Behind the gowns, the jewels, and the perfect smile, Gleason saw a woman who terrified nearly everyone she worked with. He'd seen her backstage, calm, calculating, rehearsing not her lines, but her emotions. Every laugh, every tear, every thank you was practiced. To Gleason, she wasn't living her fame. She was controlling it, strangling it into perfection. He said, Joan didn't play characters. She became them. The problem was, she never stopped acting. In his eyes, Crawford was the most dangerous kind of Hollywood star, someone who believed their own illusion. And what Gleason found disturbing wasn't just her coldness, it was how others enabled it. Directors, producers, studio heads, everyone bowed to her. Not out of respect, but fear. He once described a dinner party where Crawford arrived 40 minutes late, demanded her chair be moved 3 times, then dismissed an entire waitstaff because the champagne wasn't cold enough. Everyone laughed nervously. Jackie didn't. He later said, she had a way of making cruelty look elegant. That's the trick of old Hollywood. If you smile while you're doing it, no one calls it evil. The world saw a screen goddess. Gleason saw a woman who fed on control, a mirror of everything that was wrong with the Golden Age. The obsession with image, the hunger for power, the worship of the fake. But Crawford wasn't the only one who left a mark on him. Gleason said there was something even more sinister than any one actor or actress, something woven deep into the culture of Hollywood itself. And that leads us to the part of his story that most people never talk about. By the 1970s, Jackie Gleason had seen it all: fame, fortune, failure, and fear. But he'd also seen something few dared to admit out loud. Hollywood wasn't built on dreams. It was built on control. He told close friends, "The real Hollywood isn't about talent. It's about who's willing to give up their soul first." He'd watched actors destroy themselves for a taste of attention. He'd seen studio heads break people down just to rebuild them in their image. He'd seen the kind of smiles that hid pain so deep it became part of the performance. And after years of laughter, Gleason began to lose his own. He realized the same machine that made him famous was the one that nearly ate him alive. Every joke, every smile, every perfectly timed laugh, it was all a distraction from the truth. That behind the glamour, Hollywood had become a kind of beautiful nightmare. He once said in a quiet moment, "They call it the Golden Age. I call it the age of masks." Gleason wasn't bitter, he was awake. He saw how easily people traded kindness for status, authenticity for applause, humanity for attention. And the scariest part? He realized it wasn't just Hollywood. It was America itself. The audience had fallen in love with illusions, with people who looked perfect, spoke perfectly, lived perfectly. But behind every perfect image was a person breaking apart. By the end of his life, Gleason rarely spoke about the evil he'd witnessed. He didn't name more names. He didn't write a tell-all book. Instead, he left behind something even more powerful: a warning. "Don't fall in love with the show," he said, "because the moment the curtain drops, you'll see who's really been pulling the strings." And when the lights finally went out on Jackie Gleason's life in 1987, Hollywood mourned the comedian. But those who really knew him mourned something deeper: the man who spent his life making people laugh. After discovering that laughter was the only thing keeping him from the darkness he'd seen. Music fades. The final voiceover hits like a slow echo. Jackie Gleason didn't just expose Hollywood's secrets, he exposed ours, our obsession with the people who pretend to be perfect, while the real ones disappear behind the curtain. By the late 1970s and 80s, Jackie Gleason had seen enough of fame to know its real cost. He'd laughed, cried, and entertained millions. He'd been adored, celebrated, and imitated. But through it all, he never lost sight of the truth. Appearances are deceiving. He often told friends, "People worship these stars like saints, but the truth? Saintliness wasn't in the room." Jackie's insight wasn't just about Hollywood, it was about life itself. He had lived in a world obsessed with image, performance, and applause, and he had survived it. Yet he also understood how many others did not. His point was subtle but shocking. Evil doesn't always wear a mask of malice. Sometimes it wears a tuxedo, sings a love song, or waves to adoring crowds. Sometimes it smiles politely while plotting humiliation behind closed doors. And he used his position not to gossip, but to warn. To remind everyone that the public sees what they are allowed to see: the shine, the glamour, the laughter. But rarely do they see the cracks, the cruelty, or the emptiness behind the camera. Gleason's words echo like a whisper from history. Don't confuse charm with kindness. Don't confuse applause with respect. And never let fame blind you to the truth. This was more than Hollywood gossip. It was philosophy, morality, and caution wrapped into one. The lesson of a man who knew the cost of brilliance and the shadows it casts. In 1986, Jackie Gleason gave one final, breathtaking performance in Nothing in Common, starring alongside Tom Hanks. He played an aging, ailing father, sharp-tongued, stubborn, yet deeply human. The irony wasn't lost on anyone who knew him. Jackie Gleason, a man secretly battling colon cancer, diabetes, and complications from phlebitis, was channeling his own mortality into his art. On set, he appeared energetic, booming, and fully Jackie, But behind the scenes, he was fighting one of the greatest battles of his life. Every line, every gesture, every comedic timing was fueled by willpower, determination, and the knowledge that this might be his last opportunity to perform. Critics praised him immediately, calling it a layered, unforgettable performance. But to those who knew the truth, it was miraculous. He was performing at the peak of his soul, even as his body was failing. Less than a year later, on June 24, 1987, Jackie Gleason passed away in his Florida home at the age of 71. The world mourned a legend, a comedian, a genius. But those who understood the full story mourned something deeper. A man who lived a life of laughter while navigating darkness, cruelty, and the harsh truths of fame. Jackie Gleason's legacy is not just in the shows he made, the characters he embodied, or the records he sold. It's in the lessons he left behind. That the world is not always what it seems. That charm can hide cruelty. That even brilliance can mask darkness. And perhaps most importantly, that courage isn't just standing on stage or making people laugh. It's speaking the truth when no one else dares. So next time you watch an old Hollywood classic, hear a perfect song, or laugh at a timeless joke, remember Jackie Gleason, the man who entertained millions, exposed secrets no one wanted to see, and reminded us all that behind every smile there can be a story untold. Jackie Gleason saw the best and worst of fame, and had the courage to say what no one else would. So next time you watch an old Hollywood legend smile for the camera, remember Gleason's words, "Not all that glitters is gold."
If you enjoyed this story, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. It really makes us smile. And if you're hungry for more fascinating tales, check out the 2 videos right below. You might just discover your next favorite story.